I recently dealt with something no officer should ever have to live through. My Tesla's tires were slashed by the same people who run our HOA. And the reason? A street parking violation. She said it threatened her home's resale value. Funny thing is, the only real threat was me. Because I'm a state trooper, and when someone threatens me, I make them pay. Let me start from the beginning. Before we dive in, let me know where you're listening from today. You don't forget the sound of a blade dragging across rubber. Not when it's your car, your driveway, your warning. The mistake they made wasn't cutting the camera. It was assuming I didn't have 3 more watching from angles they'd never see coming. Briggs knew before I did. He let out a growl, low and sharp, as I passed the threshold into the hallway. No tail wag, no bark, just a short, guttural noise I hadn't heard in years. His whole body stiffened, ears locked toward the garage like something was already in motion. I stopped cold. Sometimes silence is just silence. But this was the kind that waited, the kind that hovered on your skin just before a firefight or a flashbang. I reached for the door handle, unlocked the deadbolt, and cracked it 2 inches. That's when I smelled it. Burnt rubber, metallic residue, the kind of scent that doesn't drift, it sits. I opened the door and stepped out into the kind of suburban quiet you only get after a storm, or before one. Then I saw the Tesla. The front tire on the driver's side looked like it had been carved out by a bone saw. Clean edge, rubber peeled like skin. The rear tires sagged inward, symmetrical cuts along the walls. They hadn't slashed randomly, they'd mapped it. Precision over panic. The kind of damage that didn't scream rage. It whispered, message received. I scanned the concrete, no shattered glass, no markings, no cigarette butts. Whoever did it cleaned up. They wanted the damage noticed, but not the footprints that caused it. And then, across the street, movement. Karen. Porch light was already on. She stood in the doorway like she'd been waiting for the cue. Coffee mug in hand, robe tied too tightly. That smug little lean against the railing, like she was watching a community theater performance she'd written and cast herself. She didn't wave. She didn't blink. She took a slow sip, tilted her head, and said, "Maybe next time you'll read the guidelines, officer." Then she walked back inside like she hadn't just thrown the first punch in a Cold War. I didn't shout. I didn't move. I just exhaled once, turned, and walked back inside. Briggs followed, tail down, head up. I didn't even take my boots off. Went straight for the dash cam. 2:41 a.m. 3 figures. One by the fence, one by the car. One taking out my side-mounted motion sensor like he'd done it 100 times. The camera tracked them until one of them, tall, limping slightly, turned to face the lens. He raised one finger and tapped the glass. Slow, deliberate. Not a mistake. Then the feed cut to black. That wasn't a prank. That was a man saying hello. I copied the file to 3 drives, backed them up in 3 locations, military habit, then I checked the garage. Briggs beat me there, nose already under the Tesla. That's when I found the charging cable. Not yanked, not unplugged, cut clean through. Serrated blade, maybe 5 inches across, judging by the bite width and the fray pattern. They didn't just want to disable it, they wanted to make it bleed. But that wasn't the worst part. Taped to the inside of the garage door, meaning someone had stepped in, was a letter. No envelope, no return address, just a folded page with the HOA watermark and Karen's little signature at the bottom. Vehicle placement violation, Class 2. Street-facing visual obstructions impacting neighborhood cohesion. Warning issued. Future action pending. I stared at it. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. I'd seen this before, not in the suburbs, in other countries. Warnings that didn't use words, just signs. Sandbags moved 6 inches to the left. Trash can lids turned upside down. There's a kind of violence that shows up wrapped in protocol. Claire shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. Saw the paper. Saw me. "You seriously got HOA'd again? Dad, your car's like too quiet for them. You know that, right?" I didn't answer. She rolled her eyes and drifted back to her room. The moment passed, but it stuck. I pulled out a pen and circled a line in the letter. Disrupts aesthetic consistency. Funny, I thought that's what made it mine. Back to the footage, frame by frame, that limp, that gait, too familiar. That wasn't just a tall guy with bad knees. That was Sergeant Monroe, Fort Benning, 2008. Used to run compliance drills like they were religion. Got out before his 3rd deployment, went private. Last I heard, he was working contract enforcement for shady housing projects, the kind that move fast, scare faster. And now, he was in my neighborhood, wearing a fake HOA patch, damaging property, leaving notes. And Karen? She didn't blink when she saw the damage, didn't flinch when she spoke. That wasn't shock, that was confidence. The man leading that crew? I trained with him in Fort Benning 15 years ago, and if I was right, this wasn't about a car. It was about who had control over what happened next. Briggs knew before I did. Again. He wasn't barking, just pacing. Shoulders stiff, paws soft, tail drawn low, like a string pulled tight. The kind of posture you see in dogs trained to detect motion before a sniper's scope does. At 3:14 a.m., the back alley lights flickered once, then again, then dead. I didn't flinch, didn't even move, just sat there and watched. Counted my breath like I used to on recon nights. 4 in, 4 out, repeat. Briggs pressed his weight against the front door. He didn't scratch, he didn't growl, he listened. That told me everything I needed. Something was here, watching, waiting. I moved to the garage in the dark, no flashlight. I wanted my eyes to adjust to the same shadows whoever was out there might be hiding in. The violation letter was still taped to the door, crisp, untouched. But just below it, a tiny black scuff. Shoe rubber, fresh, not mine. And not the neighbor's kid either. I checked the fence line. Dirt disturbed. A leaf flipped upside down where the soil had been compressed. Whoever came through here stepped light, but not silent enough for me to miss it. I went back inside and pulled up the expanded camera feed from the side panel backup unit. This time, I didn't look at the masked men. I looked at the edges. There. Frame 213. Someone watching from the east corner. A smaller figure, hooded, phone sideways, slow movements, almost like they were filming the whole thing, not reacting to it. I zoomed in, blurry, but there was something unmistakable about the posture. Arms crossed, hip cocked slightly left, and that smug lean. Karen, watching from behind the tree line, not interfering, just recording. Because why just threaten when you can enjoy it in 1080p? Later that morning, I added 3 more drives to the offsite backups. Then I sat at the kitchen table with everything spread out. Still frames, footage, street angles, pattern maps, routines. Claire came out in her hoodie, dragging her backpack behind her like a wounded soldier. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "Nope." "Did you eat?" "Nah." She looked at the table, saw the photo grid, and sighed. "Jesus, Dad. This again?" I didn't answer. "This is Karen, not a war," she snapped, brushing past. "She's not the problem, she's the face," I said. Calm, even. Claire stopped halfway to the fridge. "You realize how crazy that sounds, right? You're a cop, not whatever this is." She's surveilling the neighborhood, filing false violations, damaging property, using private contractors. Claire opened the fridge and muttered, "Yeah, and you're building a war board in the kitchen, so maybe chill." That one stung more than it should have. Around noon, I pulled one of the old Ranger notebooks from the basement, the one I used when I needed to think tactically. I started sketching out approach patterns, how someone might circle the house without tripping a sensor, how they might exploit the HOA camera gaps. And then I paused, because I recognized something in the routes I drew. They weren't circling me, they were funneling me, pushing me into a pattern, conditioning me to check the same corners, walk the same paths, create predictability. This wasn't surveillance. This was preparation. That night, I sat in the garage again. Lights off. Briggs beside me. 3:46 a.m. Nothing. 3:52 a.m. Still quiet. At 3:58, a soft pop. Then silence. Briggs stood up, growled once, and bolted to the far side. I followed, scanning the shadows. On the ground by the HVAC unit, a piece of electrical tape, torn, still sticky, and a thumbprint in the dust beside it. They'd been there, close enough to touch the house. I froze, not in fear, in calculation. And then, a smell. Sweat, faint, mixed with engine oil and burnt rubber. I flinched, because that was the last scent I smelled before an IED went off in a valley south of Kunduz. We lost 3 men that day, because I missed the footprint half buried in gravel, because I didn't trust the dog that stopped walking 5 seconds before impact, because I thought ghosts only haunted old places. They don't. They show up on porches, leave folded notices, smile across cul-de-sacs. By sunrise, I was back at the table. I reviewed every HOA camera in the area using back-channel access. Karen showed up 3 times in one night, never walked the same direction twice, never stayed more than 7 minutes. She was probing, testing how long it took me to come outside. I noted the timestamps, logged the intervals. At 9:12 a.m., a box showed up on my porch. No return address, no delivery scan, just a plain cardboard rectangle with a black sticker that said, HOA response, compliance follow-up. Inside, a chrome tire valve stem cap, just one. Under it, a typed note, violation resolved, keep the peace, or we escalate again. I wasn't being warned anymore. I was being watched, cataloged, pressured to crack. And what scared me most? I was starting to like the idea of cracking. The notice wasn't mailed. It was folded, taped to my garage again, like they were branding cattle. HOA mandate, compliance hearing, mandatory attendance. Below that, an exact time. No explanation. They didn't ask me to come. They ordered it. The meeting room smelled like printer ink and citrus cleaner. 10 chairs, 8 filled, 7 by strangers, middle-aged faces with HOA tags, the kind of people who carry clipboards like they're weapons. Karen stood at the front, blazer ironed, hair pinned, smile flawless. Behind her, a projector beamed the words, Community Conduct Review, Ridgeway Ridge. Gordon sat to her left, eyes down, one hand twitching on his knee. Officer Ridgeway, Karen said, with a warmness that stung like bleach. Please take your seat. I didn't move. Her smile thinned. It's for protocol. I stayed standing. She nodded, as if I'd confirmed something she wanted. Today's review, she said, concerns repeated violations, behavioral disturbances, and civic hostility directed toward members of the board. She clicked the remote. The projector changed, photos, my Tesla, multiple angles, zoomed-in tire tracks, time-stamped overlays of my security footage, my own footage. She narrated like she was presenting at a TED Talk. Exhibit 1, visual obstruction due to unsanctioned electric vehicle placement. Exhibit 2, charging cable stretched across shared sidewalk zone. Exhibit 3, video stills, 10:38 p.m., dog unleashed, pacing property lines. And 4, verbal hostility directed at board witness Gordon. I looked at Gordon. He wouldn't meet my eye. Karen kept talking. Community feedback has reflected an increase in neighborhood discomfort due to your behavioral pattern, particularly late-night patrols, silent vehicle operation, and what one resident described as cop face. Someone behind me snorted. I took a step forward. Karen raised a hand. You'll have your chance to respond after we finish. No, I said calmly. I'll respond now. She blinked but recovered. This is your hearing, officer. We recommend silence as a sign of cooperation. Funny, I said. That's what they used to say in Gitmo, too. The room went quiet. Karen's jaw tightened. Your record shows commendations, years of service, an excellent reputation. We respect that. But it's possible to be both decorated and dangerous. She clicked again. Slide change. A typed letter, anonymous. Allegations that my son had flown a drone to film neighbors, that I had trained him in surveillance, that Briggs was an intimidation tool used to harass residents. My fists curled without thinking. Karen kept her tone light. I understand parenting is difficult after loss. Grief impacts judgment. That's why this review is so important. Not to punish, but to redirect. That's when I cracked. Just a little. I stepped forward again. Slow, measured. You've been watching us. Karen's smile didn't move. We monitor the neighborhood. For safety. You accessed our footage. She clicked again. A photo of Claire, drone controller in hand, shot from above. Not security footage, surveillance, private, unauthorized. You took that from a tree cam, I said. Karen blinked. I don't understand the distinction. I looked at Gordon. He was pale now, hands clenched between his knees. He opened his mouth, closed it again. And I saw the war inside him. Guilt, fear, shame, but not courage. Not yet. Karen closed her folder. Unless you're prepared to accept compliance mediation, the board will file a formal escalation. What does that mean? I asked. She smiled again, this time wide, pleased. It means we vote to declare your home a conflict property and submit a motion for eminent community redevelopment. A screen lit up near the exit. A flyer. Maple Drive, Phase 2, redevelopment proposal. My address, my lot. Flagged as a community transition zone. I wasn't just being pushed. They were already clearing the space behind me. I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't raise my voice. Just left. Gordon flinched as I passed. I stopped beside him. Spoke quietly. I saved your dog when it got out. Fixed your fence. Lent you tools. Now you sit there while she accuses my kid? He didn't answer. Didn't have to. His silence screamed. At home, Claire was already waiting. She stood on the porch steps, arms folded. I nodded toward the door. Inside. You're not safe out here. She didn't move. They're saying I'm a pervert. What? Karen told the neighborhood moms that my drone was lingering near girls' windows. Now I've got 6 messages asking if I've been warned by police. She swallowed. Have I? My chest cracked. Never. She didn't speak again, just walked inside and slammed the door. Briggs sat beside me, didn't bark, just watched the street, like he was waiting for it to happen again. I didn't just lose the room, I lost the benefit of the doubt. And worse, my kid thought I might have earned it. It started with silence, not the gentle kind, not even the kind you train to hear, the kind that means someone's already inside. Briggs stopped chewing his rope toy mid-bite. Tail dropped, ears pricked. He moved to the hallway, like he'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. I followed, quiet, cold. 3:17 a.m. Back gate cracked 2 inches. No wind. All 3 motion sensors dark. Cams dead. The perimeter was gone. I stepped into the living room, one hand near the wall, the other by my sidearm. I didn't draw yet. Didn't need to. The air changed, the way it does before a lightning strike. Then a whisper, wrong voice, too close. I pivoted. 1 second, flat palm, throat grab. He never saw it coming. I drove him into the wall with my forearm. His radio clattered. Baton fell next. He reached. I twisted. Wrist lock, bone to drywall. He crumpled like laundry. Briggs exploded before the second one hit the floor. Fangs met forearm. The man shrieked. Too late. Briggs had already torn through the protective sleeve and pinned him hard against the linoleum. The third one tried to run. I chased him through the kitchen, out the back, across wet grass. He jumped the fence. I didn't hesitate. Grabbed the top beam, launched, landed just behind him. He pulled a taser, cheap, flickering. I hit his elbow mid-swing, disarmed him, flipped him into the mulch. He wheezed, tried to roll. I stepped on his ribs. His breath stuttered out like a pop balloon. And then I heard it. A click, then a voice. You're being documented. Any further aggression will be submitted as evidence. I turned. Karen stood near the garage, haloed by the porch light. Phone out, flash on. I advised them to remain calm, she said, almost smiling. But you escalated. You always escalate. I opened my mouth, but that's when the second man, bleeding, pulled something from his vest and tossed it across the lawn. A wrench from my garage. Karen gasped. Weapon? She turned the camera back toward me. And that's when I saw the angle, the framing, the prepped lighting, the camera rig attached to her wrist. This wasn't documentation. It was a production. I backed up 1 step, fists clenched. Then Karen spoke again. You want to say something? Make it good. It'll be on every channel by noon. I stared her down. You're trespassing. This is my home. She didn't blink. You forfeited your rights when you became a threat. By the time real cops arrived, the scene looked like a nightmare. 2 attackers down, 1 unconscious, me blood spattered, Briggs barking furiously, jaws red. Karen calm, composed, camera still running. She didn't yell, she didn't gloat. She whispered to the sergeant on site. I warned you, she said. He's not stable, not anymore. They didn't cuff me, but I saw the doubt, the hesitations. Take the night off, one officer said. You need to let the process play out, another muttered. By morning, I was on unpaid leave. Claire didn't come down for breakfast. She watched from the stairs. You went too far, she said. They broke in. Doesn't matter, she replied, holding up her phone. The video had 280,000 views. Title, Disgraced Cop Assaults Community Members During HOA Wellness Check. No sound, just video. My strike, their grunt. Briggs' growl. Karen's voice at the end, clean, clear, sweet. We'll handle it peacefully next time. I watched it 10 times. They clipped out the taser, the break-in, the wrench, left in just enough to show me as a predator. Even the light was staged. I looked 10 feet tall, unhinged. That night, I cleaned Briggs up, checked his paw pads, rewrapped his shoulder. He licked my face once, then stared at the window. He didn't growl. He watched. Same posture as the perimeter dogs we used in Helmand, and I suddenly realized I was standing the same way. Back to the door, chin raised, hand loose by the hip. Claire spoke again. "Is this what you wanted? War?" I turned to her. "Not at all. But you're not going to stop, are you?" I looked at my reflection in the microwave. Red eyes, bruised knuckles, shirt blood-stained. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I could. They used my fists to build their narrative. Now they were armed with proof. But so was I. And next time, I wouldn't give them an angle. I'd give them a reason. I didn't get a phone call. Just a system notification, administrative hold, pending conduct review, badge suspended, access revoked, cruiser reassigned. Everything I'd earned in 2 decades, frozen behind a hyperlink. 2 hours later, internal affairs put me in a room colder than the tone in their emails. Fluorescence overhead, voice recorder blinking red. No clock, no calendar. The woman across from me didn't bother with pleasantries. No nameplate, no handshake, just a folder with my name on it and a thin smile. "Walk me through the incident on your property," she said, not looking up. "Use measured language." Measured, like trauma comes with subtitles. I gave her the sequence. Home invasion, failed sensors, masked men, improvised defense. My voice stayed level, my hands didn't shake, but my throat felt raw, like I was swallowing wire. She didn't blink, just typed, like I was background noise in a case she'd already decided. When I got home, the silence was louder than her questions. Claire sat on the floor, surrounded by unopened books and half-packed notebooks. Her phone lit her face. Her eyes didn't blink. "You're viral again," she said, voice flat. "This time, it's global." The clip was one I hadn't seen. Not Karen's version, not the boards. A new edit? Slower. Mood music. Red filter. Unstable cop snaps in suburbia. Over 400,000 shares. Briggs walked past the screen. In the video, they'd blurred his eyes to make him look wild, like a threat. Karen posted a community safety update that evening. I didn't watch it live. I heard it through speakers, outside. She'd mounted a PA system on the HOA clubhouse roof. No vote, no warning. "We value law enforcement," she said, her voice calm, soft, performative. "But we cannot allow violent tendencies, no matter the uniform, to compromise peace." Applause played over the feed. Pre-recorded. I stepped outside, listened. Neighbors stood in doorways. Some recorded, some stared, some turned their backs. I needed a name, a target, something tangible. Greenline Holdings was the LLC. But that wasn't enough. I drove to the Municipal Land Records office just after they opened, wore a ball cap, hoodie up. The clerk at the window glanced at me, then at her phone. I saw her screen freeze for a second, like recognition was sinking. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She didn't smile, didn't speak, just looked at me like I was a mugshot come to life. "You're him," she said finally. I didn't answer, just slid a sticky note across the glass. Parcel number, lot code, HOA affiliation. She hesitated. The kind of pause that says I should report this, not how can I help. "I'm not supposed to." "You're not helping me," I said. "You're helping the truth." She printed it, quietly, and slid it under the glass without another word. The name on the form? Gordon J. Hale, co-signer, notary, stakeholder. I scanned it, printed 3 copies, and stuffed them in a manila folder labeled Kill Box. Not for violence, for exposure. Claire didn't come home that night. She texted, "Staying at Emma's, just for space." Space. Like I was a threat now, not a father. Later, I found Briggs growling at a shadow through the window. Just a jogger, wrong hoodie, wrong stride. Still, I opened the door with my hand on the handle of the bat I keep by the bench. He looked up. I looked back. For half a second, I saw something else. An insurgent, not a neighbor. The sound of IEDs, screams, and a smell I hadn't smelled in 10 years. Burnt nylon and sand. Then it was gone. Jogger passed. I closed the door. Briggs whined once, then laid back down. The next day, spray paint. Freak house, across the fence. Below it, in pink sidewalk chalk. Sorry, my mom made me. I didn't wipe it off, didn't report it, just stood there. Briggs sat next to me, head tilted, listening to something I couldn't hear yet. For a moment, I wasn't standing in a yard. I was standing in a war zone. They didn't strip me of my rank. They didn't tear down my house. They tore something deeper, what I was holding on to. And the second that snapped, they were going to meet a version of me I buried overseas. The man had the same limp. Not dramatic, just enough to clip the stride. A pattern you only notice if you're trained to see it, or looking to end it. He didn't see me parked in the lot. Engine off, windows up. He stepped out of a dusty hatchback behind the vape shop on 5th. Black duffel, jacket zipped up past the neck. Beanie low, civilian camouflage. He lit a cigarette like he had nowhere to be. I watched, waited, then followed him into the alley behind the shop. No look back, no radio check, no sense of threat. Sloppy. I closed the gap in silence, then drove my boot into the back of his knee. He dropped hard, the duffel slipping off his shoulder. The cigarette sparked as it hit the pavement. Before he could spin, I had him against the dumpster, forearm crushing his throat, fist cocked, weight balanced. He didn't look scared, not yet. Then he made eye contact, and he knew. "Ridgway," he rasped. "You remember?" A beat, then that stupid grin. "Didn't think you'd come off leash." My voice came from somewhere deeper than my lungs. "I'm not off leash." I shoved him harder, bones grinding brick, eyes wide now. "I'm off record." He twitched, reached for something, slow, intentional, bad move. I slammed him against the wall, twisted his shoulder until he groaned, and yanked him half around. "You planted the wrench." He didn't deny it. "Karen says hello," he wheezed. I slammed his head into the wall once, hard, then again, and again. And suddenly, I wasn't in the alley. I wasn't looking at a man anymore. I was back in a ravine, Afghanistan, wind howling, dust in my mouth, one of our own, bleeding out, and me, pinning the enemy who set the trap. My hands clenched the same way. The world narrowed to his gasps, and my knuckles, and the ringing in my ears that meant I'd passed reason and slipped into instinct. And just like then, I couldn't tell the difference between justice and fury. Back in the alley, my boot lifted, half raised, mid-strike, lined up to collapse his ribs into mush. My body was already in motion. Only thing missing, permission. Briggs barked from the open car door across the alley. Not loud, just once. Sharp. Enough. I blinked, lowered my foot, stepped back like I just realized I was on a ledge with no railing. He rolled over, coughing, spitting red, still grinning. "You're not going to finish it," he said. I wiped sweat from my brow. "No," I said, "I'm saving it." I left him bleeding in the alley. Didn't call it in, didn't warn anyone. Just climbed into the car like a man waking up from a nightmare he almost wrote himself into. Briggs didn't bark again, didn't blink. Just stared, waiting. Like he wasn't sure who I'd be when I sat down. I didn't drive, I just sat there, hands sticky, breath sour, heart climbing my throat like a live wire. For a few seconds, I wasn't Ridgway, wasn't cop, wasn't dad. I was nobody, and it scared me less than it should have. When I got home, Claire was on the porch, hoodie up, eyes fixed forward. "You tracked someone," she said. No question. I didn't answer. "You hurt them." Silence. She turned her head, slowly. "I can smell the blood." I exhaled. Too long. Too late. "Was it worth it?" she asked. Still nothing from me. She stared at me like she was waiting for something to break. "I used to feel safer when you were home." That line hit like a roundhouse. Not because it was loud, but because it was true. She stepped toward the door, paused. "You're not the only one who's watching your back now," she said, quieter. "I checked the locks. I listen at the door. Not because of them, because of you." Then she disappeared inside. Didn't slam the door. Didn't have to. I stood on the porch until the air went cold. Blood dried under my nails. My reflection in the window looked tired, lopsided. Not dangerous, just frayed. Inside, I washed until the sink ran pink. Stared at the mirror over the faucet, and asked the version of me staring back if he even wanted to come back from this. Because part of me didn't. I didn't cross the line tonight, but I got close enough to smell what was on the other side. And the worst part? It didn't smell like fear. It smelled like justice. I stopped swinging. Didn't mean I stopped fighting. Blood is a message, but paper rewrites history. And I had the paper. Not just evidence, leverage, not just truth, timing, because Karen used rules like weapons. I was about to turn her own arsenal against her. The kill box folder became my warhead. Everything inside, notarized minutes, fake board votes, easement maps, rezoning filings, payouts disguised as consulting fees, was loaded with names, timestamps, intentions, all backed up, all duplicated, and none of it had my fingerprints on it. I started with the one HOA rule they forgot to delete. Any resident may request a community audit of board transparency if accompanied by evidence of misappropriated funds or forged signatures. One clause, buried on page 34. I highlighted it in yellow, scanned it, and attached it to an anonymous burner Gmail titled, "What She Doesn't Want You to See." I didn't hit everyone, just 6 people. The HOA's treasurer, the widow 2 houses down, the man with the oxygen tank who yells at birds, a couple who host barbecues but never talk politics, Gordon's wife. 12 hours later, the newsletter headline changed. Gone was the usual community pool schedule, replaced by who's signing what and why. I didn't write it, Mrs. Delaney did. She knocked on my door the next night. No warning, orthopedic shoes, eyes sharp. She held out a manila envelope with the confidence of someone who used to walk into war rooms with a clipboard. I found these in a box marked archived. Karen forgot to shred the past. Inside, HOA bylaws dated 15 years back. Older signatures, different board, including a resignation letter from a board member who never got replaced. That meant every vote since had been technically invalid. Karen had been ruling with a ghost quorum. "I thought you hated me," I said. She shrugged. "I hate bullies more." Then she turned, walked off without a goodbye. I started planning. Real planning. Leaking wasn't enough. I needed to infect the system. I spoofed an old HOA web address from a cached archive, made it look real, branded, logged. I created a fake community suggestions form that mimicked the HOA's official site. At the bottom, report community violations, misuse of funds, and board misconduct here. Within 2 days, I had 18 anonymous reports from within the neighborhood. I didn't even have to fake them. People were waiting for someone to give them a microphone. I just handed it to them. Then came the envelope. No return address, just a red pen mark on the corner. Inside, a thumb drive, no note. The footage, Karen handing Gordon a fat white envelope in the clubhouse. Cash inside, time-stamped, audio off. I watched it twice, then 3 times. Was Gordon covering himself, confessing, or setting me up? Didn't matter. I had it now. I didn't release it. Not yet. Not to the board, not to the cops, not to the neighbors. I sent it to one person, a local reporter who called me a destabilizing influence 2 weeks ago. The subject line, "You were half right. Let me show you the other half." No name, just the file, and one scanned receipt linking the HOA fund to Gordon's company. Claire found me late that night. I was on the porch scrubbing Briggs' paws with a towel. Her voice was low. "You're playing chess now." I nodded. She sat next to me, knees pulled up. Quiet for a full minute. "You still scare people," she said. "I know, but this version of you?" She looked sideways. "It's quieter, smarter, harder to kill, then softer. Are you doing this for us or for you?" I didn't answer because I didn't know. 2 nights later, Karen addressed the HOA on camera. Usual backdrop, polished blazer. But this time, no smile, eyes flat, jokes absent. Her voice sounded like it had an expiration date. "We understand there have been misunderstandings, misinformation, rogue elements." She never said my name, but her hands, they trembled. The next day, Briggs and I walked past Gordon. He nodded, didn't smile, didn't speak. I nodded back. Because now, he was scared of me. I stopped throwing punches, but I'd learned something more dangerous than force. The truth can kill slower, and I wasn't done bleeding her yet. It started with a letter, certified, no return address. Claire brought it in with the same hands she used to carry groceries and scrape paint off her bike, but she didn't say a word, just dropped it on the table and waited. Inside, a notice of unsafe property conditions, filed by the HOA, signed by Karen's attorney. They listed my Tesla as unauthorized machinery, Briggs as a noise liability. My fence, visually disruptive. But the real hit was in paragraph 6. Mr. Ridgway's visible presence has become a psychological threat to community tranquility. I read it once, then again, then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was planned. And the laugh didn't even finish before the second envelope hit the porch. Restraining order, filed by Karen, signed by a county judge. Not just protecting her, Gordon was listed too. I barely had time to react before Karen struck publicly. She held a community safety address at the HOA clubhouse that same afternoon, flanked by her clipboard brigade. 2 off-duty sheriff's deputies stood behind her like cardboard props. Karen wore navy, hair tied back, no jewelry, voice smooth, tone icy. This isn't about one man, it's about a pattern, an energy, one that threatens peace, families, and our collective values. Mr. Ridgway has been involved in multiple disturbances. Reports include verbal threats, hostile gestures, and dog aggression. She didn't use the word unstable. She didn't have to. I watched from my porch as neighbors listened, pretended to fidget, looked at their phones. But one man, Frank, the guy who used to mow lawns for extra cash, turned and looked right at me, not with anger, with pity. And somehow, that was worse. Later that evening, Claire came down the stairs, holding another flyer. No envelope, just paper. Emergency petition for accelerated eviction. The fine print mentioned something called the Community Protection Clause, buried in the annex bylaws. One Karen probably wrote herself. The language was surgical. Behavioral volatility, unreported tactical training, threat display in front of children. They were describing me like a ticking bomb. I called the clerk's office. The filing was real, processed, logged, but the assigned judge, that name hit harder than anything else. Royce Blevins. 7 years ago, I'd arrested him on a DUI. Daughter in the back seat, drunk behind the wheel. He got cleared, quietly reinstated, reputation rebranded. Now, he had my life on his desk. I met with Vega, my legal backup, the next day. She'd traded combat boots for heels, but her tone hadn't softened. You've got maybe 72 hours before this gets out of hand. I thought it already was. She opened her laptop and pulled up Karen's latest filing. She's calling you a destabilizer. She's playing on the HOA's fear of litigation. She's even got a pediatrician from the neighborhood signing a statement about increased child anxiety. My jaw clenched. She's weaponizing discomfort. She's weaponizing you. I nodded slowly. She forgets I know how to push back. Then make it count, Vega said, because if this hearing goes public before you do something, she flipped the file shut. You're not the man they'll vote to keep. You're the story they'll bury. That night, Claire came home later than usual. She didn't slam the door. She tossed it. In her hand, a copy of the HOA newsletter. On the front page, a photo of her pulled from Instagram, edited into a header titled, HOA member's daughter, linked to cyberbullying scheme. She stood in the doorway, trembling. I walked forward. She dropped the paper and hit me in the chest. You said it was about protecting us, she said. It still is. Then why am I bleeding in the crossfire? She was crying now. Angry tears. Not fear, not sadness, rage. You think this is about you versus Karen? Look around, Dad. Everyone's in the blast radius. Even me. She stormed off. Didn't even go upstairs. Just grabbed a blanket and laid on the porch. Arms crossed. Briggs joined her. Silent, loyal. And I watched from the hallway. Helpless. The next morning, there was a knock. I opened it ready for another notice. Instead, it was a kid. Maybe 12. Maybe 13. He handed me a paper. No envelope. Inside, we hope you find peace somewhere else. Underneath the line, in a different pen, my mom made me do this. I think you're cool. I sat on the stairs, read it again and again, until the words stopped being letters and started burning. They weren't just coming for me anymore. They were coming for everyone around me. That wasn't law. That was permission. Karen wasn't just trying to win. She was trying to erase me. And the next move wouldn't be legal. It would be personal. And she'd never see it coming. It didn't happen in the shadows. It happened under string lights, at a barbecue that smelled like guilt and overcooked burgers. Karen's community wellness picnic. An HOA rebrand so fake it almost hurt to read. Kids ran circles around folding chairs. Parents sipped wine from plastic. And behind the raffle table, Karen, grinning like none of this was real. But her smile cracked the second she saw me. I didn't walk in alone. Briggs at my side, Claire behind me, Delaney beside her, holding a folder that weighed more than it looked. No words, just steps. Intentional, measured. I didn't scan the crowd. Didn't need to. I could feel their tension clinging to the air like pollen. Karen stepped out like she was hosting a TED Talk. "Mr. Ridgway," she said, loud enough for the crowd. "Didn't know we were expecting security." I stopped just short of the raffle table. "Just here for the truth." "Isn't that sweet?" she replied, even after the restraining order. "No longer valid," I cut in. I pulled the document from my inside pocket and held it high like a warrant. Order vacated, clerk signed, Judge Blevins recused. That landed. A murmur rippled through the lawn. Claire handed out the first wave of packets, labeled Maple Drive Fraud, Internal Evidence. Then Delaney followed. Unfiled quorum records, missing resignations, fabricated board votes. Neighbors flipped pages, whispers spread like fire through dry grass. Karen's face twitched. None of this is valid." Vega stepped from behind the music speaker. "It is now," she said. "Stamped, certified, recorded, this morning." Karen's voice pitched. "You can't just hijack a family gathering for a personal vendetta." "I didn't hijack anything," I said. "You did. When you broke the law, when you broke us." Then Gordon stepped forward, visibly sweating, hands shaking. "Karen," he said, "don't." She turned toward him, whispering something I couldn't hear. Gordon looked past her, to me. "I didn't know how deep it went. I'm sorry." He walked over and dropped a fresh envelope on Vega's table. Inside, the original HOA charter, the one Karen buried, the one that proved she'd been ruling illegally for 6 years. Karen's voice cracked. "You're doing this to me?" But Gordon didn't answer, and neither did the rest of the board. She lunged for the table. Briggs growled, a low warning note that cut through the speakers. She froze, but her eyes, wild. She grabbed the mic instead. "He's dangerous, unstable. He's a PTSD case with a dog trained to attack children." I stepped forward, not fast, but enough to make her backpedal. I held up the final envelope. Footage, bribery, cash handoff. Audio off, clear timestamp. "Clubhouse camera, you forgot about the second angle." Her face dropped. She lunged, grabbed my shirt, fingernails like claws, and that's when it happened. I stepped in, twisted her wrist gently, just enough to break her grip, and for a second, I saw nothing but dust, explosions, and a body bleeding out in a ravine that never existed on a map. My hands remembered that war, and I nearly brought it back. Then Claire stepped forward. "Dad," she said. That was all. I blinked, let go. Karen dropped to the grass, gasping, not from pain, from defeat. She looked up, for help, and found no hands reaching back. Delaney stepped past her, placed a petition on the table. "Removal of HOA President Emergency Vote, 63 signatures." Karen's voice was gone. No words, no sounds, just silence. I looked at Claire. "You knew I almost snapped." She nodded. "You didn't. That's what matters." I looked around. The lawn was full of cameras now, but no one was filming her. They were filming us. That night, Claire found me in the garage, leaning on the hood of the Tesla. Briggs curled up by the fridge. She sat beside me. "She wanted to ruin you. Almost did. So why not end her?" I looked at her. "Because monsters don't kill monsters. They replace them." Karen lost her empire. I didn't take it. I just made sure everyone saw it collapse. And in the silence she left behind, something else was waiting. The quiet came slow. Not like someone flipped a switch, like someone finally remembered where the switch was. The flyers stopped first, then the announcements, then the sideways looks. People still walked their dogs past my house, but they didn't cross the street anymore. Some waved, some nodded. One even offered to help fix the gate Karen's goons cracked. I didn't ask why, didn't need to. Karen's house went dark 2 days after the vote. No goodbye, no sale sign, just gone. Some said she left town. Some said she never lived there. Doesn't matter, because she's not coming back. And this time, nobody's waiting for her. Claire got her letter in the mail the following week. Nothing fancy, a modest engineering program. 2 towns over, full ride. She didn't jump or scream. She just stared at it, folded it once, and smiled. That kind of smile you don't post online. Just keep for yourself. That night, she walked into the garage. I was wiping road dust off the Tesla. She slid the envelope onto the workbench. "I'm not running," she said. I looked up. "You sure?" "I'm not scared anymore." That stopped me, not because it sounded brave, but because it sounded true. She helped me tighten the last bolt on the back gate. Briggs watched, tongue out, tail relaxed. "I miss this," she said. I didn't ask what she meant, because I knew. Mrs. Delaney brought pie 2 days later. Didn't say anything about Karen, didn't need to. She just handed over a box of old HOA minutes, the paper versions. "Just in case," she said. "You ever want to rewrite the rules?" I opened the lid. Inside, hundreds of hand-signed attendance logs, one from my wife. Claire leaned over my shoulder. "I didn't know Mom went to meetings." "She didn't," Delaney said. "She showed up once, told Karen she didn't care about the rules. She cared about people." I felt my throat lock. Claire smiled. "She would have burned the whole HOA to the ground." Delaney nodded. "She lit the match. You carried the fire." That night, I drove out to the memorial site. Claire stayed behind, said she wanted to repaint the fence. Briggs rode with me, window down, wind in his fur. My wife's stone sat in the corner, under a tree she picked. I knelt beside it, pulled a single folded sheet of paper from my jacket. The original complaint Karen filed about my Tesla, the one that started it all. I placed it under a rock beside the marker, then said what I'd been holding for years. "I broke a lot of things after you left, myself included." Pause. "But I protected her, the way I promised." Briggs sat beside me, silent, still. I stood up, exhaled, the kind that empties something you didn't know was full. We drove home slow, no rush, no tail, no threat. Claire was waiting on the porch, paint on her hands. Briggs ran ahead. She looked at me, then at the gate, then at the neighborhood. "Do they get it now?" I nodded. "They don't have to like me." She finished the sentence for me. "They just have to remember you." I put my hand on the doorknob, then stopped. Looked back once more. No signs, no Karen, no fear, just a house, our house. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like home again. Karen lost. I didn't just survive her, I ended her. For my wife, for my daughter, for me. And if they ever forget why that matters, they'll learn the same way she did. One mistake at a time.